Hello, my dear future doctors. It's your very own Baya here, and guess what we're going to do today? We are going to absolutely smash this chapter together. Respiration in plants.
I know. This chapter feels a little tricky, doesn't it? So many cycles, all those ATP calculations, but hey, tension not. In the next few minutes, we're going to break it all down in a simple question-answer format. We'll crack it so well that when any question from this comes up in NEET, you'll solve it easily. Ready? Okay, let's dive right in.
All right, let's start with the absolute basics. First things first, why do plants even need to respire at all?
So the most fundamental question is, what exactly is this thing we call cellular respiration? Look, it's pretty simple. The food we eat, the glucose that plants make, breaking the carbon-carbon bonds of that food is what we call cellular respiration. But, and you need to pay attention here, this is not some kind of bomb blast. It's a slow, step-by-step, enzyme-controlled process. And what's the main goal? To capture that energy in the form of ATP, which is the cell's energy currency. Just remember this. The whole point of this entire process is to make ATP. Now, let's get to the first major step, glycolysis. The most important thing here is that glycolysis happens in every single living organism, whether there's oxygen or not. That's why we call it the universal common pathway.
So the question is, what actually happens in this process? Let's break it down.
The name glycolysis itself means sugar splitting. Glycos for sugar, lysis for splitting. Now remember, this happens in the cell's cytoplasm, not in the mitochondria. And in this process, one glucose molecule is partially oxidized to form two molecules of pyruvic acid. It's also called the EMP pathway, after its discoverers, Emden, Meyerhoff, and Parnas. They could definitely ask you that in NEET. Okay, I know it's a 10-step process, but let's keep it simple. First, you have to invest some energy. You spend 2 ATPs. Then, the 6-carbon sugar splits into 2 3-carbon molecules. And then comes the payback time. We get 4 ATP and 2 high-energy NADH molecules. And the final end product, 2 molecules of pyruvic acid. So you see, there's an investment phase and a payoff phase. So what's the final accounting? That number 2 you see on the screen is the most important number here. Why? Because you made 4 ATP, but you spent 2, so the net gain is 2 ATP. And as a bonus, you get 2 NADH. Both of these 2s are direct exam questions, so remember them well. All right, let's move on. Now, just imagine, what if the cell doesn't have any oxygen? What happens to that pyruvic acid? Well, that's when fermentation happens. This slide is super important for comparison questions. Aerobic respiration means a complete breakdown, you need oxygen, it happens in the mitochondria, and you get a massive 38 ATP. Fermentation, on the other hand, is a partial breakdown, no O2 is needed, it happens in the cytoplasm, and the net gain is just 2 ATP. It's a clear difference, right? Now here's a very important concept. The real job of fermentation isn't to make a lot of ATP. Its main purpose is to convert the NADH made in glycolysis back into NAD+. But why? So that NAD+ is available for glycolysis to keep running and keep pumping out those 2 ATPs. It's really just a survival mechanism. Okay, let's get back to what happens in the presence of oxygen. Now the real action begins, inside the powerhouse of the cell, the mitochondria. So the product from glycolysis, pyruvic acid, now enters the mitochondrial matrix, and here a crucial link reaction takes place. Pyruvic acid is converted to acetyl-CoA. In this process, one molecule of CO2 is released and one NADH is made. And remember, since one glucose made 2 pyruvates, this reaction happens twice. Now that acetyl-CoA will enter the Great Krebs Cycle, or the TCA cycle. Now, more than memorizing the steps, it's more important to know what we get from it. What are the products? So remember this, from one molecule of acetyl-CoA, in one turn of the Krebs cycle, we get 3 NADH, 1 FADH2, and 1 GDP, which is just like an ATP. Along with that, 2 molecules of CO2 are released. You have to learn these numbers by heart. And since one glucose makes 2 acetyl-CoA, just double all of this for a full glucose molecule. So far, we've collected a lot of NADH and FADH2. So what happens to them? They go to the Electron Transport System, or ETS, which is on the inner mitochondrial membrane. This is where their energy is used to make a whole lot of ATP. And this process is called oxidative phosphorylation. This is where the magic happens.
This conversion rate is very critical for the final calculation. As you can see in the chart, one NADH gives us 3 ATPs, and one FADH2 gives us 2 ATPs. Got it? One NADH equals 3 ATP, one FADH2 equals 2 ATPs. Simple.
All right, it's time to do the final calculation. Let's make the respiratory balance sheet. Okay, let's walk through this table. From glycolysis, we get a total of 8 ATP. From the link reaction, 2 NADH means 6 ATP, and from 2 turns of the Krebs cycle, we get a total of 24 ATP. So if you add all of these up, what do you get? A massive 38 ATP per glucose molecule. This is the big prize of aerobic respiration. Here's another important concept, the amphibolic pathway. We tend to think that respiration is only catabolic, a breakdown process. But that's not right. Its intermediate products, like acetyl-CoA, are also used to build new molecules, like fatty acids. So it's both breakdown, which is catabolism, and synthesis, which is anabolism. Hence the name amphibolic.
Next up, a favorite topic for examiners, the respiratory quotient, or RQ. The formula is very simple. It's the amount of CO2 released divided by the amount of O2 used. RQ equals CO2 over O2. And these values, you absolutely have to memorize them. For carbohydrates, the RQ is exactly 1. For fats, it's less than 1, around 0.7. And for proteins, it's around 0.9. You get direct match-the-column questions on this.
So what's the summary of the whole chapter? It's this quote right here. The key is to oxidize glucose, not in one single blast, but in several small, controlled steps, so that the maximum energy can be captured in the form of ATP. Simple, isn't it? You've totally got this. Keep studying, and all the very best for your NEET exam.